What is good, my intro powered tribe? My name is Ase Daniels, and we are a community of like minded people who are powered by our no in order to give room for a bigger yes. I need us to receive that. Recharge with kindness, not being nice. There's a difference. And we are renewed with bounce back resiliency against burnout. Burnout is real. And we got to have, not that we have to perpetually avoid it, but when we get there, we have to be able to bounce back. We're going to talk about that. And we are propelled by our life's magnet. Everybody has a life magnet, and this is what pulls us forward. This is what our focus is. This is what are the how we are the right tool for the job with our life magnet. We have to identify that. I got more for that coming, but welcome. Glad you hopped on tonight or whenever you get a chance to listen. This is our tribe. For those of us who are formerly known as introverts, intro powered. Okay, there's a negative connotation, in my opinion, about introverts. So we flip it, we upgrade it to intro powered. This is a movement. This is who we are. We are going to attach and think differently. We as human beings must continue to upgrade our thinking about ourselves. This is important because if we minimize and we beat ourselves up and we are content with perpetually living in the background, and I get it, introverts, we like to work in the background quiet, but I'm challenging us to find that one lane based on your gifting, your life magnet, and where you are to lead. That's where we get the most joy and satisfaction out of this life. And that's how we can be the solution, be a solution to a problem in today's world. Okay. We can be the right tool for the job, but we got to identify and know who we are. Once we know who we are, then we know what to do. All right. I'm getting started tonight. We're talking about resilience. The resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. It's a grit, it's a toughness. And I love the other definition. I'm big on definition. We always start with a definition. It is the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape. We have elasticity. And let me challenge us, intro power. Listen to me. Some of us think we are resilient, but we're really hiding. We haven't bounced back from anything. We have just been content with living in the background, living in the shade, living on the bench, and we got to get in the game. I'm telling us that bitterness and resentment is real, and we keep lifting up and what's the word I'm looking for? Either way, we are helping others achieve their goals, but then all of a sudden in their dreams and their aspirations and their desires, but when we look up, we haven't done anything towards ours. And the both and can be true. We can get to our dreams and goals and we can push and grind and forget that this whole grind code. I don't even like saying the word, but we can excel and strive towards what we believe is God's best for us and what the dreams and desires that He's placed in our heart to come to fruition. Then we can be in position to not just help, but to help that much more efficiently out of a place of joy, as opposed to a place out of obligation and lack of joy. And I'm telling us, we got to shift. Intro powered, we can't just continue to do things out of obligation or fear that if I don't, then this. So we live out of fear. We can't operate in fear. We're not built to operate in fear. What I'm learning about the brain is that there's the limbic system that operates in the brain, and the amygdala is specifically functions towards fear. And that's our fear response. So if there's something that we need to get away from to get to safety, our amygdala kicks in and releases the neurochemicals necessary, cortisol, that will help us gain extra strength and extra awareness and extra speed and whatever we need to do to get from where we are in a place of fear, of danger, to a place of safety. That's what the limbic system does. It's the system that governs our feelings in our brain. And the amygdala specifically is one that operates out of a flight or fear. Either way. So the problem is that we if we don't operate from the prefrontal cortex, that's our thinking clearly and rationally, okay, and we operate out of fear of other people's opinions, people pleasing, etc., we are in a dangerous place. And the brain it inflames the limbic system. The limbic system is not built to operate out of a place of constant fear. It's supposed to react and spike. The cortisol is released, and then we get to a place of safety. Those cortisol levels come down. But when we operate out of a place of fear, the limbic system becomes inflamed. I'm reading on this, y'all. This is real. We cannot allow the limbic or the feeling center of the system of our brain to constantly be moving and stepping on the gas, like burning gas, because it damages it as it inflames the limbic system, but it damages the prefrontal cortex and how we think. It damages it. I'm telling y'all, this is real. This is real. So we're talking about resiliency, but I need us to understand it's not just being resilient, able to recover quickly from difficulties, but it's putting ourselves in the best position in which our brains and our bodies and our lives can be operated in the most efficiently without destroying our minds, but constantly living in a reactive, fearful place. Our brains are not meant to do that, y'all. It's supposed to help us in dangerous situations. But if we are constantly living in a space of fear and anxiety, that's not healthy. And again, it inflames the limbic system and it damages the prefrontal cortex, our thinking. We need to operate in a space of thinking rationally, clearly, and inspired by the Holy Spirit, not emotionally. Emotions are signals to help us identify where there may be a problem, especially negative emotions, but we cannot live and operate out of a feeling base without having a foundation of rational, clear thought and principles that we operate from. Okay, let me get into it. So last week we talked about a lot of the factors on which the problems of us being resilient to resiliency. Last week we talked about that. And we talked about when we become resilient to resiliency is because, and this is what we operate in, we exhibit and we exude these things. We live in a space of irritability and overreaction. Okay. Go back and listen to last week. I'm gonna just list them here, but go back and listen to last week's. I gotta post those. I didn't post last week. I gotta post it this week. Dwelling on problems, marinating, stewing. Oh, worst case scenario. Oh, if this happens. Oh, what will they think of me? What will happen? Oh, all these bad things. Bad. Again, inflaming the limbic system, thinking only in a space of emotion as opposed to rational, clear thought in our prefrontal cortex. I'm big on how the brain operates because, and then I want to really study and understand the subconscious, because that's the heart in biblical terms. When we see heart in the Bible, it's really talking about subconscious, and we got to do some excavating, some spiritual and emotional excavating to remove a lot of untruths and lies that we believed, so that we can operate out of a space of truth and love. I'm telling y'all, this is spirit. This is deep. This is spiritual, and it's applicable to our everyday lives. I'm trying to tell y'all, this is the space we need to operate from. This is what I would determine and describe as being resilient. So it's not about making mistakes. It's not about having setbacks. It's not about losing something that you had and you really cared about. It's how we choose to respond. Now I'm not to ignore our emotions. We are to feel. We're human beings. We have emotions. We are to feel them, but we are to process them in line with the principles that we want to live with, the virtues that we want to apply to every situation, so that when we do make a mistake, when we do have a setback, when we flunk a test, when a relationship ends badly, when we lose our job, when the business doesn't blow up like you want it to, when the book flops, all these things happen. How we choose to respond is an indicator of our resilience factor. And so we can dwell on problems, we can have sleep trouble. When we are resilient to resiliency, we have sleep problems. We cannot sleep. We go to bed thinking about it. By the way, commercial, when we go to sleep thinking about problems and negativity, that's why we got to watch what we listen to, especially when we're going to sleep. We fall asleep listening to chaos and drama and negativity, and some of us like these horror movies and all this stuff, and we wonder why we can't sleep. or we dwelling on the problem, we talking on the phone, talking, and we talking to the person, not helping us reframe the problem, but we talking to the person like, yeah, that's a problem, man. I don't know what you're gonna do. That seems horrible. And I mean, we gotta be wise who we talking to, especially when we go to sleep, because our subconscious does not ever go to sleep, y'all. It doesn't. Let me keep going. Let me keep going. These are problems when we are resilient to to resiliency. Uh, Persistent illness, when you get sick and you won't go away, that cough, that headache, that stomach ache, that flu, that cold. Now we got COVID on top. See, when we're resilient, we think, oh, it's just we just we could just bounce back. But if we don't have a bounce back mentality, it's going to affect our physical health. Our mind and our bodies are intertwined and ever so connected. How we think impacts how we feel and how we will fight back against illness, sickness, COVID, whatever. Resilient. Let me keep going here. Let me keep going. Okay. Tonight we're going to talk about the top critical success factors for highly resilient people. Okay, this is important. I need us to understand this. There are factors that each person who has a high resiliency quotient displays and lives out and exhibits these um, these factors. Number one, sleep quality. So again, see, notice, if you want to be highly resilient, you got to pay attention to your sleep quality. I mean, everything, the kind of bed you sleep in, the kind of pillow you use, the comforter, the temperature, the lighting. These things are important. And like I was saying earlier, what is our nighttime ritual? What do we do uh, before we go to bed and lay our head to sleep that night to prepare us to be refreshed and renewed and feel rested, to ready to attack the next day? Those that have a high resilience factor and a quotient make sure their sleep quality is top notch. I mean, top of the line. I don't think you can invest too much in your quality of sleep. We cannot cheap out on the bed. We cannot cheap out on the sheets and the pillow covers and the pillows. Some of us, I know, I would wake up with bad neck pain and cricks. Y'all, black folks say crick in your neck. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, you woke up like, you gotta get a better pillow. We gotta figure out what we need to do. And again, what are we doing to prepare for our sleep? Are we doing some stretching? So, some hydro, making sure with these screens, we got to be careful with these screens, y'all. We got to be very careful what we sit and watch in our eyes. That, you talk about how we need to, there's settings on our phones at minimal. Guys, we need to use, and all these expensive devices that we're using, we need to know every feature, especially the ones in regards to the blue light. After a certain time, you can turn it on so that it doesn't impact your eyes, and it has a blue light feature so that it allows your mind to start calming down and to start shutting down and to get some rest. Even though so we got to use and apply quality sleep to everything we're doing every single night. We got to go to sleep. And this whole grind culture and, I'll sleep when I'm dead and sleep is for suckers, and it's ridiculous. I'll say it's antiquated. It's like going back to this uh it's antiquated. It's useless now because it's unwise, it's unsustainable, and it's really harmful. And if you believe it or not, lack of sleep is worse, just as bad and worse than being a drunk alcoholic behind the wheel, being inebriated behind the wheel. Now, inebriated, you could be on the weed smoke, you could be drinking, and then if you're asleep, they're almost on par when we have poor sleep. But those of us with a high resilient quotient, these are the critical success factors of highly resilient people. Number one is our sleep quality. It's just as important, the quality and the quantity of our sleep, at least 7 to 8 hours, y'all. We have to frame our schedule and make sure that happens. You can't catch up on the sleep you lose. Our bodies are made, we gotta sleep. We're human beings. We sometimes we treat ourselves so badly. Let me keep going. Number one, number two, as far as The critical success, y'all forgive me. Number two is the critical success factor for highly resilient people. Number two is fulfillment. This is huge, y'all. This is huge. Where do we find joy in what we do? Where we are right now, do we find joy in doing it? This because again, with setbacks, with job loss, with relationship challenges, with health issues, there's places in our lives that we must find fulfillment, that we find a place of joy and satisfaction. That's why I'm so big in our life's magnet, excuse me, identifying our life's magnet, because that is where we should, when we are operating in our gifting, when we're being used with the spiritual gift, that the gifting that's in us, not just the talent. The talent should come and enhance the gift, but we should do all of those things that we find true fulfillment doing. Those that have uh, 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 high six, these are critical towards our hmm, success factor in being highly resilient. Do we find fulfillment in the work of our hands? What we do, most of us do at least 5 days a week. Do we find joy? And I get there's seasons where we might not love what we do, but it should be building towards finding where we find the most fulfillment and we get to operate in our gifting. And I love how Steve Harvey says that our gift is what we do that gets maximum results, but takes minimal effort from us. And I'll add on there that brings joy and satisfaction in this life. We look forward to Monday mornings instead of instead of dreading Mondays, we look forward to Mondays. Instead of working to the weekend, we get to work. We get joy for working during the work week instead of looking forward to the weekend as soon as Monday starts. Oh, I can't wait till the weekend. And I get it. Okay, work may be tedious and taxing, but we got to find fulfillment in doing it. Are you fulfilled? These are real, deep, introspective, spiritually deep questions we must ask ourselves. And I believe things can happen quickly, but we have to be working towards where we find fulfillment. Because whether or not we have high resilience, whether we bounce or splat, we're going to talk more about that in the coming weeks. We have to find fulfillment. And I'm telling us, we need to operate in a space where we get the most fulfillment. Where is that? So that's the success factor number two of being highly resilient. Um, okay, number three, the critical success factor. Number three is how do we bounce back? Okay, see, bounce. Again, this whole theme on resilience comes from one of my favorite leadership gurus, John Maxwell. He said in life there's two groups of people. The You either are in the bounce group or in the splat group. Are you bouncers or splatters? Okay, let me break this down real quick because we're gonna go really deep on this. How do you bounce back from problems, setbacks, uh, job loss, relationship challenges, etc.? Now, let me put a commercial here. We cannot ignore how we feel. If we're hurt, we're disappointed, we're frustrated, we're angry, we are human beings. We must acknowledge and process those. Process, what do I mean? Admitting that we feel a certain way, not pretending, not hiding. Some formerly known as introverts will pretend to say stuff like, I'm fine, but really we're fearful, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. I'm fine. This is a term we must banish and get rid of. And we can keep it short because a lot of people go through these automatic responses. How you doing? But they don't really have the capacity, and it's okay. We don't blame them, but a lot of people don't have the emotional and mental bandwidth to actually ask the question, "How are you doing?" and pausing to give you space in which to express your honest feelings. How you're doing? I'm not doing great right now. I'm really struggling. I'm dealing with this and that. Oh wow, that sounds tough. Um, and just be okay with someone feeling bad. We're so quick to want to help everybody feel good. But we see again, intro power, we need to acknowledge and take time to say, you know what? I'm feeling bad. I need to do a journal reflect, talk to a close friend, maybe sit down with a counselor or therapist, process any what I call negative life events. These are those burdens that are too heavy for one person to carry. We're not built to operate and to carry these big. A family member is sick and dying, and their health is really really poor. We need to be honest. This is really bothering me. But see, if we don't, then we're not going to be able to bounce. And we think we're bouncing, but we're really splattered because we go, work, and we bury ourselves in our work, and we just show up and we grind, all to ignore and to pretend we're not feeling a certain way. This is dangerous. This is unhealthy, and it's going to catch up with us one way or another. Sooner or later, it's going to catch up with us. And we got to be very careful. And I love this quote that I have here is that we got to be very careful how we treat ourselves, and when we have setbacks, when we have disappointment, when we have grief, when we have loss, we got to be honest with ourselves. So that's a little commercial. As far as the bounce back, it's not how long it takes for you to bounce back, but are you going through the process of being honest? Once you're honest and saying, I'm really hurting, then you can allow yourself to feel and let those feelings float away. Then we come back to our principles and the virtues in which we are to live, that we choose to live by. And we go back to the beginning. We look at those things again. And I love how it says this. See, this is key. I love here it says, if you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. I'm telling, listen to me. If we don't make time for our wellness, our mental, emotional, spiritual health, physical health, we will be forced to make time in the hospital, in burnout. I, I need y'all. I need us to receive this. It's coming. If you are not there or not, and whether or not you bounce back. See, this is the bounce back principle. Is that and I heard my men's coach say, shout out to Fred Bussey, and he would tell us that we need to not just raise the roof in our goals and aspirations and dreams and desires, but we need to lift the floor. This I love when he says that, because I always think, because this is bounce back, this is resiliency, is when we're lifting the floor, i.e., we are practicing with the goal of mastery. Our what do I call it? I don't like, some people don't like the other term, but I call it our personal stewardship. We know what stewardship is. Some of us church folk, we know that means cash, money, finances. But I'm telling us, we are responsible for our money as well as our mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical health. How we practice with the goal of mastery, our personal stewardship, will impact whether or not we bounce or we splat. Splatting mean, real quick, is that we fall into negative habits. We got addictions. Our health is poor. Our sleep is poor. And see, this is the real, is we're irritable, and don't nobody want to be around us. We're negative. We're harsh. We're cruel. We're critical. Judgmental. All of these will determine whether or not we have bounce back resiliency. That's what we're talking about. Let me keep going. And going along with our personal stewardship, how do you relax? See, this is we gotta know ourselves so well, and we gotta be willing to step into a space and say, you know what? What do I need to do that's positive and healthy? Let me put that frame on there to relax. That's positive and healthy that I can do on a daily basis, maybe at lunch, when you come home, on the weekends, once a month, once a quarter, every 3 months, 6 months to a year. We need to have a system of relaxation that we can recalibrate for the day, so that we can go back and be the best version of ourselves for the next day. We need a system, y'all. We should have a system in which we can recalibrate, reset. And where is that quote I like? Yeah, it says, how do we reset, readjust, restart, refocus? And it says here, as many times as you need to, daily, It's sometimes maybe a couple times during the day, on the weekends. And I believe in keeping the Sabbath. This is what we need to be doing: resetting, readjusting, restarting, refocusing during those times, whatever that looks like. If we need to journal reflect, if we need to do some yoga stretches and breathing, if we need to sit down with a counselor or therapist, we need to talk to a group of friends, some brothers that we can bounce off without judgment and wanting to fix it. We can just have a space to be honest and express, to emote. Especially as men of color, we don't emote. Talking for myself, we haven't been culturally trained and given permission to emote. All the emotions that we are given permission to do is usually anger, you know, and then they we they in sports and those kind of things. Those are when we express those things outward outside of society, then they come for us. Whether it's righteous indignation, whether we have a right to do it or not. Let me keep going. Let me finish here. The last factor, so we talked about sleep quality, whether or not we have a space of fulfillment in the work of our hands. Do we feel fulfilled? Do we have joy and satisfaction after a honest day's work? Do we feel fulfilled? Some of us live so long never being fulfilled, and life is too short. And I'm telling us, once we identify our life magnet, that's where the fulfillment comes in. That's where the joy and satisfaction comes in, because we're built to do it. We're built for this. Every day we go into work, we should be like, man, I'm built for this. Not just based on our talent, but based on our gifting that is birthed in our DNA. And I could get spiritual, but we not. Let me finish here. But the last high resilient factor for those the last one of the critical success factors of highly resilient people is they have an ability to focus. Now, this is one of my biggest challenges, is that I want to do so many things, but God speaks to me and says all the time, I say, what's in your hands? What's in your scope of influence? And you gotta uh, take care of what's in your hands. Then you can do other things and other dreams and aspirations. Write them down. Don't forget them. Write them down. Process them later. Have a journal. Have a planner. Y'all understand where I'm going? Then, but again, check the boxes that are right in front of you. I say, okay, I'm working on the devotional book. I say, finish the devotional. Get the small group questions I want to do. Then you can find an editor. Then you can deal with the t-shirts and the mugs, all these things I want to do. There's an order to these things. Do what's in your hands. Can I focus? That's how you can bounce back. I'm talking about what do I call them? We take, and when you're planning, and I don't have my planner with me. Shout out to the Full Focus Planner, Michael Hyatt. You need a good planner. That's the system I use. And what I like to do in there, it has a weekly big three and a daily big three. And I'm talking about we should micro task, small ones, small incremental ones that we can use, that we can write out and break down that goal, that task, that project that we're doing into micro tasks, that when we're tired, when we have a setback, we give ourselves time. We are honest with ourselves. We acknowledge that I am a human being that has emotions, and I sit and I process my emotions, journaling, reflecting, speaking to someone, up in our exercise. These are things that we can do. Talking to close friends. Maybe taking a day or two off just to process. Uh, Again, therapist or counselor, we're not meant to carry these negative things, these negative life events alone. Bad health diagnosis, ending a relationship, ending a marriage, problems with your kids, losing a job, getting COVID, all these things. These are negative life events that we are, like the Bible describes it, as burdens that we are not meant to carry alone. We need support. I need help. That is a high. That's a level of focus that you say, you know what? I can do what I can do, what I'm responsible for, but there's things that we are not responsible for as far as getting help. But we have to be responsible to speak. I need help. Be honest. Acknowledge where you have need. I'm done, y'all. I wanted to just keep this short, but again, we talk about the top 5 critical success factors of high resilience. We need to be very deliberate about life. And I was talking to my daughter and my wife, and we were and we're talking about black folk, and I'll end with this is that, oh, when will the government get it right? When will we get a fair wage? And when will all these things happen? I agree, all those things should happen. And there's a recalibration, especially as in regards to work. This whole 9 to 5 paradigm and salary, I think it's time to reassess and going back into the building, going back to the workplace, etc. We need to rethink those things because we proved during COVID, during the lockdown, during the pandemic that we could do a lot of these things from home and not have to be in a physical. All I'm saying is we need to reconsider having to go in every single day, 5 days a week. Maybe one day a week we don't. I'm pushing this thing. I believe because we checked the boxes before. So what's different now? Either way, ending here again. You guys, listen. Thanks for hopping on. Um, we can't wait for our job, for the president, for America, all these places to get right. We can't wait for things to get better, racism disappear, and fair wages for men and women. We can't wait. We got to take action and work on ourselves and continue to improve on ourselves, put ourselves in the best possible position in which to succeed. So again, life is not whether or not you get knocked down, but I like how Rocky says, it's how many times you can get knocked down and get back up. That's the life principle about resiliency. The Bible says the righteous man, the man who is striving to do right, the man who is focused and is concerned and desires to want to live his life as the best way he can to reflect and honor his maker. He falls 7 times, but gets up. That's the difference. Can we bounce back and get up after loss, pain, disappointment, frustration, anger, all these things? That's the resilient factor. That's what we're going to be talking about next week. And then I got a webinar coming back. Whether it's called Bounce or Splat. I think it's clever because we can see it right away. Whether or not, what type of individual are we? Are we the egg? Are we the bouncing ball that when life happens, when we fall, not just falling, but do we lift the floor? So when we do fall, it's I'm telling y'all, we need to operate this thing, y'all. We need to have a place where we are practicing with the goal of mastery, our personal stewardship. So we're lifting the floor so life events don't knock us down for as far and for as long. That's the resiliency that I'm striving to push us to, intro powered. This is the space we can operate in. I promise you it's better. And it's not about whether or not we need to take time to grieve, to process, to be angry. We can give ourselves permission. Job loss or grieving the loss of a good job to go into something better. We can grieve that. There's a lot of times when we go into something better and we need to give ourselves time and space to say, you know what, man, I miss those people. I miss that job. And I know this is better. And this is what I've been praying for and desiring. But man, that was a good space. That was a good time. We should memorialize those things. We should do more celebrating of those things. And we need to be willing to emote and shed tears. Okay. All right. Good night, everybody. Again, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Intro Powered podcast. Leave a review. And let me end here. Nice people do finish last, but kind ones rise to the top and are sustained there. God bless you. Have a good night.